This webinar, which is kind of new to us because we do a webinar a week on something about NetDocs, usually for NetDocs users. So different topics, you can go to our webpage and see. Kind of take off the month of August. I say that we're only doing two webinars in the month of August. Every other month, we do three to four webinars about using NetDocs. That's at the optiable.com webpage under events where you can schedule or recommend to your firms to schedule. But this one's different. It's about how to upgrade ndOffice and ndMail for NetDocs Windows users. Now, I'll be nice and I will touch on the Mac law firms as well. And realistically, there are a couple of maybe I've got 20 to 30 clients that are total Mac, but most of the time we're a Windows firm, but our partner has a Mac at home and needs to use NetDocs. We'll address that in the webinar. But realistically, we're going to go over today how to upgrade NetDocs on a Windows computer. And again, there's two components to this. NetDocs is a cloud-based program. However, you have to install programs on your computer to talk to NetDocs. Now, when we finally get to the point where we're using Word Online, Outlook Online, things like that, maybe we won't have to install any software anymore, but we're not at that point yet. Now, honestly, I'm going to skip this part. We usually do this, we go over NetDocs updates, but we're going to kind of cover this stuff in the webinar today, so I'm not going to go over it. So the first thing I'm going to cover, and I know people are going to be like, can you send me this web page? Google NetDocuments downloads. If you Google NetDocuments downloads, this is the page that will come up. This tells you when new software is updated with NetDocs. Now there's a follow button right here. Now this is the kind of super annoying part, but if you go to follow, it will bring you to a page to sign up for NetDocs. Some of the MSPs on this call have multiple NetDocs clients. Maybe you have one or two. If you go to sign up, put in the firm name, and then it will, and this is annoying and it used to not be this way, but then it'll basically ping someone at the firm and they're gonna ask, hey, can I set up Sarah with this access? And then once Sarah has this access, she can follow this page. The beauty of following this page when you Google NetDocs downloads is you get an email when something has changed. And I screenshot this page today. So August 6th, this web page changed. It has all of the NetDocs software that gets installed on a computer. So Google NetDocs downloads, you'll find it. I recommend following the page, putting in an email address, and just be alerted when new software comes out. All right. What's the update schedule? So I'm going to say this. Hi, my name's Craig Bear. I work for a company called Optiable. I do not work for NetDocs. I have been a NetDocs partner for 15 years. Here is what usually happens. In January/February, there is an update of ndOffice and maybe ndMail. Those are the two products, the two main products installed on a Windows computer. And then May and June, there's another update. Those are the major updates. All right. So that's usually how the cadence goes. So January, February, we'll expect an update to ndOffice and ndMail, and then May and June, another update to ndOffice and ndMail. So two big cycles a year. Now I checked this out here because I wanted you to see this. So ndOffice 4.2, which is the newest version of ndOffice. It's not. Let me take that back. 4.2.1 is the newest version of ndOffice, but 4.2 was available May 27th. Okay. The patch 4.2.1 came out July 25th. Now these are actual dates here. That is an actual longer cycle. And I will say probably why it's a longer cycle is that the bug fixes in 4.2.1 are really not that major. Like if there was major like stuff broken, the patch would always be released earlier. So the way this usually works is software is released and a month to 2 months later a patch is released. The patch is when I recommend you install the software. So again, ndOffice 4.2 came out at the end of May. Would I install it to your clients? No. I'd wait till the patch comes out. Now, in this instance, because it waited so long, maybe I would have installed it at the end of June. Maybe if there was something that your firm were chomping at the bit to install. But usually we get software released, and then a month later, a patch is released. And that's when I recommend you update NetDocs for your law firms. Okay. So I would not, and I'm going to open this up to questions once I get through all this. We're going to go answer questions about all these things. So I see hands being raised. I will answer every question because we're going to get through this pretty quickly. And then we're just going to chat about all these great questions you're going to have. So what I usually recommend is, hey, roll out NetDocs for your law firm, okay? And then look at the updates. So that's where we're probably all at. We're all probably not super new NetDocs users. New update comes out, wait for the patch, then roll it out to the firm. And, commit to 1 or 2 updates a year. I mean, if you do it 1 update a year, I still think that's okay. I just get into these situations now when I log into someone's computer and I'm like, your NetDocs has not been updated for like 3 or 4 years on your computer. You probably should have that updated. Now, let's just hit the requirements. Now, these also come from NetDocs website. And the way you get to these is Google NetDocs requirements, and this page automatically comes up. So what we're at now, it's always good to review. Office 2016, 2019, and 365. Okay. Now I'm hoping everyone's on 365 here. Okay. But that's what we're required. You definitely need, and the prerequisites I'm not really worried about because those haven't really changed in years. So if we're dealing with law firms that already have NetDocs installed, I don't need you to install Visual Studio Tools because you've already installed it. I don't need you to install .NET 8 because you've already installed it. The webinar today is how to update NetDocs once you have it installed. So I'm assuming you all have that. Looking at what's required here, Word 2006, so Office 2016, 2019, 365, 32 or 64-bit. Good point. So at Optimal, we've done around 515 NetDocs migrations. 400 of those came from WorldDocs, which still means 115, nothing to sneeze at, came from Windows folder structure here. WorldDocs users, because WorldDocs never updated. No offense, I used to be a WorldDocs consultant. You were forced to use 32-bit Office. So for all of you that are like, yeah, all my clients were on WorldDocs, maybe think about let's go into the future or maybe the past, the way you want to look at it. You can go to 64-bit Office now, no issue there. We completely support that. Office 2016, 2019, and Office 365. I hope you're using Office 365. Adobe 32 or 64-bit. We're looking at Adobe DC now is what we're really looking for the support. NetDocs policy, if Adobe supports the product, NetDocs supports the product. If it is not supported by Adobe anymore, NetDocs does not support it. 64 and 32-bit versions of Adobe are supported there. Okay, so I want to make that clear. 32 and 64-bit versions of Adobe are supported by NetDocs. Now, let's just going on here. So that was ndOffice, ndMail. Again, you should have Visual Studio installed. You should have 4.8.net, okay, because you have that. And then we talked about Office 32, 64-bit are supported. Adobe 32 and 64-bit are supported. All right, how to update. Now, if you Google how to update ndOffice and ndMail, this page will come up. And again, I'm just speaking to you now. I'll send my marketing team. I'll see if they can send this PowerPoint to everyone. I'll send it to them tonight. So they should be able to send you the PowerPoint here. But here are the links from my webpage. All right. So on a Windows computer, there are two components to NetDocs, ndMail and ndOffice. I would say 10% of the firms don't have ndMail. Everyone else does. So I'm giving you an MSI and an EXE for both of these here. All right, here are the direct links. All right, EXEs are your friend, okay? Now, I know that not all of you can push out EXEs. You have to push out MSIs. If you push out EXEs, it does all the heavy lifting for you. So it determines, hey, this is a computer with 32-bit version of Adobe, 64-bit version of Office, doesn't have .NET on it. It installs everything and you're good to go. MSIs, you have to be a little more strategic. So if we're looking at the ndOffice download here, the thing to point out is there is an Adobe 32-bit version and 64-bit version here. So if you're going to use the MSIs to push an update and you're running Adobe, you have to, and you're going to use it, not if you're using the EXE, you don't have to do this, but if you're running the MSIs, you have to say, all right, we have 32-bit versions of Adobe, so we're going to run the 86 MSI for Adobe setup. This is the other thing where firms like, well, we're mixed. I'm like, well, don't be mixed. This is the perfect thing. Let's get everyone on the same page. It makes it much easier to roll out the software. This is the ndOffice side of things. If we look at the ndMail, so the difference here is there's a product called folder mapping in ndMail, okay? Allows someone in Outlook to click on a folder, right-click, map the folder to NetDocs. We are asking, are you running the 32-bit or 64-bit version of Outlook? Now, again, if you're running the EXE, you don't have to even worry about this. But if you're running the MSI, you have to push out ndMail, set up the MSI, and the correct folder mapping version of it. All right, on this page as well, and I will paste this in the chat when we get done with the PowerPoint here, we have two batch files. Now, we have recently updated this to create a batch file that will not screw up anyone's settings. So when you went live with NetDocs, I sent you a batch file, and I'm like, hey, push this out to everyone's machine. That batch file had the settings that the firm agreed upon, and then a whole bunch of other settings that us as Optimal have figured this is the way we should roll it out. And then there's stuff like, hey, should we have a document stamp in Word, stuff like that. Now, for our client base, we're running in the US and Canada. So if you're a Canadian law firm, I'm going to be very specific about this, and using the Canadian data center, you want the Canadian data center batch file. If you're a US law firm or you're a Canadian firm using the US data center, you want the US data center batch file. So this is a batch file that we've created at Optimal that we feel like does the best settings for, and a lot of the stuff is like, hey, tell Word not to disable NetDocs. Tell Outlook not to disable NetDocs. All right, in the batch file. And look, I used to set up small business servers from, let's say, 2002 to 2008. I think was maybe 2009. I got out of the MSP game here. So I used to do this, okay? But no longer an expert. Our batch file has H key LM, local machine, and H key current user, H key CU. It has two basically settings we're hitting there. Local machine is very, very easy to push out. Current user is not. And at Optimal, we're mainly dealing with law firms between 10 and 150 users. So if I had 15 users, I'd probably hit each machine individually. If I had 50, I'd push it out. Okay. And again, this is, I'm letting you know this, but this is kind of your job here is, okay, how do we push out the H key current user versus the local machine? Realize there's settings in both of those. So that's something to think about. How will this affect your users? So you know, try to think updating NetDocs is really not that disruptive, but it can be. This is what I would recommend. So if you're pushing this out, like let's just say you're dealing with a firm, all right, it's time to update NetDocs. How are we pushing this out? What do we expect? Well, you can't have Word opened and update NetDocs. You can't have Outlook, Adobe, Excel, PowerPoint, Nuance, Kofax, etc. So, I mean, realistically, these are usually planned on the weekend or maybe like a Thursday night where you're having everyone restart their computers and then you're pushing out the updates. When they come in the morning, and again, this is where you restart all the computers, they will need to log back into ndOffice. You do not have to log into ndMail. ndMail looks at ndOffice and sees that you're logged in and uses those credentials. I'd say almost all of our clients are using single sign-on. If you have Office 365, you should be using single sign-on. If you're not, contact me. So your users are logging in to NetDocs via an Office 365 account. So the big thing here is when they get to log in on Monday, if it pushes them to a NetDocs screen, which it probably won't, but if it does, they need to click on Need Login Assistance and then use my organization's logon. That is, in a sense, the disruption that you can experience when rolling this out. Other than that, as long as they didn't have Word, Excel, Adobe, Outlook opened, the update should go fine. And I'm not really worried about the prerequisites here because those already should be in place if they have NetDocs installed. What about Macs? Okay, so I'm not anti-Mac at all. I definitely have a Mac, but I don't really know how to push out software on Macs. So I just want to bring this up. For most Mac firms, they're running ndClick. Now, ndClick 2.1 is brand new, by the way. This came out like a week ago. And then they're running ndSync. They might not be running ndSync. So 100% are running ndClick for Mac. And I would say 60 to 70 are running ndSync. You just got to push those out via the regular Mac update. I don't really know if there's a way to script out software for Macs. I mean, maybe there is, but those are the softwares. I just wanted to bring that up there. And that is also on when you Google NetDocs downloads. All right, so I got some questions here. Let's go with this. Will this cover remote servers AVD environments. I don't really know if there is a lot different there. I mean, we can kind of look at, you would always do is terminal server netdocs here. I know there's probably a couple things that normally don't really come up. Here, I don't know if there's any specific things that we're worried about here, and I didn't really get anything there. Maybe I need to update. Let's do NetDocs. So usually when I have firms that are on RDP Citrix or something, I give them the regular installs. Well, here we go. Here's the article here. Updating NetDocs via MSI in an RDS environment. Okay. Make sure there's other sessions opened. All right, so that's what we're getting from the old Google machine here. Let me put this in the chat, and I'm going to put some of these articles I've talked about as well. So this is the NetDocs downloads page, and I'll put this in here. And then let's do here the update NetDocs on a Windows PC. This is the article that I refer to, and this is kind of our best practices here. So and this goes over now. Again, am I going to script this out? I mean, maybe if I'm under like 20 users, I just manually do it. This goes over how to manually do it. Here are the MSIs here. And then if you want to script this out, I go over this as well. Also have the silent install on this page, so you can do that as well. I don't know. Let's see here. All right. Thank you, Sabrina. I have not been. Let me send this. I was sending this to the panelists, and guess who's the only panelist? Me. So let's come over and now send these to y'all instead of just me here. And then this was the thank you, Sabrina, for pointing that out because I forgot to switch it over here. All right. Question wise. So we talked about RDS environments. Does anyone have any other questions about rolling out NetDocs for your firms? And again, if you want to raise your hand now, I will unmute you and let you answer that question. I mean, the thing right now, as we're waiting here, is that I feel like you're all good to go. Okay, you are all good to go. Like because the patches have been released for ndMail and ndOffice, this is the perfect time to do the updates. Maybe okay, and then the batch file that we have, we are always updating. So let's say you're on this call and you went live with NetDocs 3 years ago. Okay. The batch files changed since then. So at that point, you might want to run the new batch file. Keith, haven't talked to you in a while, buddy. You are on the air. You can unmute and ask a question.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Craig. Real quick, I'll be looking at because we moved our environment over to AVD workstations in the Azure workspace. So I have a couple of session hosts that I'll be updating. Should I just update it on there, or will it be relevant to the individual profiles for each for each of the in the office updates for the patches?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can just, I don't think you have to do it on each host as long as they're logged out.
Okay.
Then you just update it and they should see the updates, right? Because this is working like an RDP environment. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, again, the thing that we run into there is we want to kill all the sessions. So I don't want a session opened with like 32 like users on there. I want to kill all the sessions.
Okay.
Um, Now, All right, Andy.
Hold on, I
So
got real
yeah,
quick.
I'm not cutting you off. I just see the chat there. So go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. And the second thing was with the phones. Will it need to get a separate push for the phones?
Completely different. All right. So the phones, and let's come over. So you're talking about, let's see if we even see this in the phones in NetDocs downloads. We do, I think we do see it here. We're talking about there. So NetDocs has an Android and iOS app. So I think it's listed. No, that's not, it's not really listed here. That's got to be done. Ignore this completely. That's just got to be done on the Android or iOS App Store individually. I don't know of a way, unless you're using some sort of mobile device management, to push that out. I don't. Like, that's kind of out of my wheelhouse. So, I mean, like for my iPhone, I just update the NetDocs app when it's there.
Okay.
Um, Andy, I was able to download the Canadian. So I put this in the chat here. Maybe there's something blocking this, but if I click on the Canadian data center here, it brings me to, and realistically, so ndOffice, so in NetDocs, there's Canada, US, Germany, EU, Australia, US government, and then I think one other one. There's 7 different data centers. The reason we're pushing this out in the batch file is so when you go to log into ndOffice, it knows go to Canada, go to the US, stuff like that. Um, I'm not having a problem on my computer. I pasted this batch file into the chat for Canada, and that's really the difference between the US and Canada. It's just saying, hey, when you launch ndOffice, go to this specific data center there. Does ndOffice contain ND threads? All right, great question. So ND thread was a product that NetDocs purchased 5 or 6 years ago. Okay, before COVID. And I'm bringing this up because I feel like Microsoft Teams killed ND Thread. Now, our company was using ND Threads all the time. And if you're sitting in this call, if you were like, what is ND Thread? It was Teams before Teams existed. NetDocs is getting rid of ND Thread. They released the sunset a week or two ago. So the what we're talking about updating here is ndOffice and ndMail. On a Windows computer, realistically, let's come back to, and I'm going to get into Google NetDocs downloads, and I won't even spell it correctly. So if we come to this page here, ndOffice, ndMail, ND-Sync is the other thing you'd be running. ND threads are here, but that program is going away. So ND threads for Windows, Mac, and iOS and Android, it's not going to be a product anymore. So we're really not talking about that. It has been replaced with Teams and a product called ChatLink, which integrates NetDocs with Teams. So that's why we're not really covering it. We didn't cover ND Sync. ND Sync is not a boy band. It is Dropbox for NetDocs. Allows someone to take a matter or a folder in NetDocs and synchronize it locally on their computer. That's still a real product that people use, but not everyone at the firm has it. Other thing I want to point out about my batch file is when we have you all roll out NetDocs for your customers, we prevent them from updating NetDocs. Okay. Like we have a registry key that does not allow users to update NetDocs. And some of you be like, why do you do that? Because first off, I would say out of the 515 firms we've dealt with, 80% of those firms don't have the ability to install software on a computer. Like it's locked down. So if they tried to update NetDocs, they would brick their computer because they wouldn't be able to go forward. And they wouldn't even brick it, they just wouldn't be able to go forward. For the other 20% that do allow NetDocs to be installed, if you have Word, Excel, Adobe, etc. opened, you can't install it. So I really want an IT person to install it. That's why we block the update. All right. Great question from Ernest here. MS365 Outlook 2.64. I guess that is different from ndMail. Holy crap, this is so confusing, but I'll explain here. First off, some of you have asked me, hey, Craig, can we use the new Outlook? And I'm like, my catch response is, well, the new Outlook sucks. So why would you want to use that? But NetDocs is aware of the new Outlook, okay? So when we're talking about ndMail here, we are definitely talking about this ndMail. This is something installed on the computer. There is also NetDocs that is embedded into Outlook 365. Now you would see it with like an ND right here in the thing. I don't recommend people use it yet. The only exception is for my Mac firms. I'm like, hey, if you're on a Mac, use that. Or you're using Outlook Web Access, or you're using Outlook on your phone. That's where you use that. Okay. So what I would tell you is that the way that's deployed should automatically update. Okay. And at a certain point, and what NetDocs tells me is by the end of the year, the Outlook, I mean, the ndMail, the NetDocs basically plugin we push out via Office 365, which is not a product installed on the computer, will have all the features as the one installed on the computer. So I'm going to guess 2025 to 2027, we're not installing ndMail on any computer anymore. That's just a guess of mine. We're just using what's embedded in there. Once you set that up, and when I send up the ndMail instructions, so let's just do this. ndMail for Office 365. All right. This is the tool right here that we're talking about. Let me throw this in the chat as well. When I asked you all to install NetDocs for your law firms, this is what I was talking about here. Okay. So this tells you what version you're using and then explains how to update it. And there is a little video there. So you probably want to check this out to make sure it's up to date. I think the latest version came out 6 months ago, and I think the way it's set up now, it should auto update. So you would just check that. Although you're probably not using this yet, this is just a future-proof you going forward. Also, under NetDocs tips, I did create this here, how to tell what versions of ndOffice and ndMail you're running. So this is just for regular users when we're troubleshooting an issue, how to tell what you're running here. Now, I'm assuming you all have software that says, hey, at our firm, everyone's running 3.7. We know that on ndOffice, and they're running 1.5 on ndMail. You should be able to tell that. This article here just tells you, and it's our last article that we posted because I created it this morning, how to tell what version you're running on your computers to see what you need to update. All right, let me see here. I'm going through the chat. Any other questions about updating ndOffice? Okay, if a user has Chromebooks, Android phones, does something need to be done? Okay, for 365 version. All right, so I mean, I'll go with the Chromebook here, or an iPhone or Android or iOS. Update NetDocs on the computer, and then make sure you have the 365 plugin installed. Okay, where is that? So God, I got too many tabs open. I should have closed them before this. Office 365, install ndMail. Usually I can be really, we'll just put in here. My keyboard is about to, I need to get a new keyboard. This is, all right. Where is, let's do 365 update ndMail. All right, there we go. All right, let me put this in here. So you want to make sure you do this. And by the way, there are videos, pages. So saving, oh God, saving an email on your iPhone, NetDocs. All right. So basically, this is answering your question here. And I do this all the time. Once you have that plugin installed, a user will click on the three dots here. Now, it won't say ndMail, it'll say NetDocs now, and they can profile it. So this would work if you're on a Chromebook, you're logged into Outlook Web Access. You can save emails, you can send attachments, you can save it, you can do all that stuff. Okay. And then you really want to be using the Outlook. You're using the Outlook Word web access. So you want to basically, and everyone basically can do this. So if I'm on a Chromebook and I'm really answering this question, how would I work on a Chromebook? So let me come into my computer. Here, we'll open up this document here. And I've got an Excel file, right click, open in Microsoft Excel for the web. And then I can edit the document. I actually even can create a new version of it. That's an option as well here. So if you have someone on a Chromebook, they can use NetDocs just like you can use it on an Android or iOS. Not full functionality, but you can create documents, save them, version documents, save emails, and save attachments. All right. What is the syntax for a scripted uninstall of ndMail and ndOffice? So if we come over back here to, let's just go to update here. For the silent install, this is what I would use. Now, I mean, again, this is where server source NetDocs, ndOffice, ndOffice setup.exe. This is where you downloaded it at. So that variable is there. And then quiet, no restore. Again, we're not uninstalling. Unless your version is super old, I don't know how to answer that question, but we're updating here. So that's what I would use to update. So I would download the latest version of ndOffice and ndMail, save it to the server, and then push it out using that script here. All right. If someone's Office apps are having performance issues, it seems to be crashing. Okay. Local app data, yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, I see the question that's being asked there, and I get it. So a couple of things here I want to bring out here is that our batch file gets updated all the time. So if someone is having performance issues, download the latest batch file because we change that off every release to deal with it. So the one thing I know about the latest batch file that we have definitely modifies NetDocs to be more efficient if you have folder mapping installed. Other thing to point out here, and I'm going to come over to ndOffice on the computer. I'm going to come over to View Echo folder. And then let's come over to NdEcho here. This is what Sabrina's talking about, and this was in the chat, so you might not all be able to see it, is sometimes if you have a problem with an individual user, you go to uninstall NetDocs and you uninstall it, you're still having issues. What NetDocs will recommend is you just you uninstall ndOffice and then you rename this echo folder like .old, because this is the database that ndOffice is using, and sometimes it can get corrupted. Now, this is less and less than we're dealing with, but if you do the uninstall, sometimes it behooves you to rename this, so then you don't have issues when you're installing. Now, Cheryl has raised her hand, so let me find you in the chat. Sorry, there's a lot of people. All right, Cheryl, you are allowed to talk and ask your question. You're still muted, so I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I'm actually all set, thanks.
All right, perfect. Good. That makes it easy, right? So, does anyone have any other questions about updating NetDocs? All right, tell us again what the batch file does. All right, well, I mean, this is something that we've created over the years. So let's come over here. If you want, I'm going to give you the whole answer. All right, so how do I give you the answer? Let's come over the US one here. Let's hit download. Now, this batch file that I have is not, crap. All right, let's take this. I'm testing out a software that basically anytime I download something, NetDocs pops open, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad. All right, so why am I a hard ass about this batch file? Especially when you roll out with NetDocs. All right, so open. We need probably to extract this. So let's do this. All right. And I've created it, but honestly, this thing's been going on for 15 years now. So I have to go through and we'll edit with Notepad. I mean, this thing's updated all the time. All right. First thing here, use vault.net voyage. This is saying, hey, you're a US user. If you were a Canadian user, it'd have cn.netdocs.com. I'm telling you, don't show emails here and this. Don't show, we only want to see documents here. Don't notify people when documents are uploaded. This is because I've gotten, everyone complains to me. Don't notify any of a successful upload, kill all the notifications. In ndMail, show the bar notification. This is basically, having done this 1,000 times, these are the bars right here. Every setting that we like, hey, this is the way it should be going. Open up .pdf, lowercase and uppercase. That's important. Default to the primary cabinet when saving. Don't notify people Outlook. Here, I'm just going through and reading this. Changes the attach button to be, I think, proper. When someone does a save as in Word and converts it to a PDF, it closes the Word document. Don't disable Outlook, any of the Outlook plugins, because Microsoft wants to disable the Outlook plugins. Don't disable the Excel plugins, the Word plugins. It's telling you not to do that. Shut off protected mode in Adobe. If protected mode's running, NetDocs won't work. So that's what these are. We have to deal with 32 and 64-bit versions of Adobe. This also explains where stuff is set up. Keys for folder mapping. Don't let NetDocs save stuff that it can't save anyway. So like an email, like calendar event, you can't do that. If you're using the folder import tool and there's an empty folder, don't stop the import from running or tell you about it. That's that. if someone's in NetDocs and they try to email something, use Outlook. Dedupe emails. So prevent people from saving the same email twice. I'm just going through here. When saving an email, don't move anything from the sent items folder. Don't block NetDocs and ndMail and Outlook. I'm going through here. Word, Excel, PowerPoint. These are all the proper word settings. Oh, and this is the efficient folder mapping created. That's off the top of my head. I mean, this has been in works for 10 years. Every time a new version of ndOffice or ndMail comes out, we update the batch file. But that's off the top of my head, the recent batch file, that's what everything does. Wow. All right. Do you regret asking that question? All right. Let's see here. You should install the batch file on new computers. Okay. You should 100% install the batch file on every new computer. And you should be able to push this thing out now because the way I set up the new batch file is it won't screw up anyone's individual user settings. All right. So let's do this. How to update ndOffice. And then I'm going to put this in the chat here. And the batch file for US and Canada is in here. All right. So that's the US data center one. That's the Canadian one. 100% new user, throw this out to them. So they're getting everything correctly. Now, all right. You got a trick in there that pops up NetDocs when browsing for a file to a court. Okay. Yeah. That doesn't need to be user. Okay. Yeah. So we're talking about the Chrome extension here. All right. So the whole idea here is when you go to a website and you're downloading or uploading documents, you want NetDocs to pop. All right. When you install ndOffice, this Chrome extension gets installed. Now there's a couple caveats here. And I try to go over this in user training, and I apologize because I'm sure all of you get thrown into this as well. First thing, thumbtack isn't checked off. So you need to check off the thumbtack to make it work. Second thing here is under managed extensions. If we come over, it might be disabled. So enable it. All right. I go over all these things in training to try to deal with it. And then let's do this. Getting Chrome extension to work in Edge. All right. How to install the Chrome extension in Edge. So it works, because Edge is a Chromium browser. So the other thing here is if they're not using Chrome, if they're using Edge, you will need to install this. There you go. Now, do I have an article on? So this is NetDocs here. You know what? There's a better one because I think Jeff at our office rewrote it. Okay, cannot use the Chrome extension. Jeff wrote this the other day. And everything I just said to you right now, here's the thing. So Jeff went over why does it not work? Managed extensions. Is it not enabled? And then so he goes over a lot more reasons why it's disabled. And eventually, if it's never installed, go to the Chrome webpage and install it. And then you're using Edge. So this article, and then there is a video here of me going over it as well. So now Firefox users can't use it. We don't support. NetDocs doesn't support it. So this is just Chrome and Edge, how we can get that NetDocs plugin in there. All right. Yeah. By the way, that's the reason we have like 7 articles about this. Probably a most commonly asked question on what we do here. All right, so let's see here in the chat. All right, everyone see the batch file. Now, the way that we wrote this batch file, it doesn't overwrite any personal user settings. So it is good to go here. Other thing I will say about the batch file, it has local machine and current user combined. Okay. So you might need to separate those out if you're pushing them out different ways. That all depends on how you're pushing out that software. All right. I didn't know if I was going to be able to spend an hour, but I feel like we've gotten to 51 minutes. It's pretty good. Any other questions about any of this? Let me just see here. All right. In Chrome on NetDocs 7.3 three dots, cast. Okay. So we definitely, let's come back here. And this is great, Rachel. This is a tip to users. So let me come over here. We definitely, this is a web page I send out multiple times to all your users. And then in training, how to create a NetDocs shortcut on my desktop. Okay, so I definitely go over it. And I have instructions here in Edge and in Chrome on how to create a shortcut, which is basically on your desktop putting a NetDocs. I don't even have one because I just know that NetDocs is a web page and I know how to get it. But that puts the ND like on a user's desktop. And I know, and you all are probably way smarter than me, like know how there's a way to push this out to everyone. I just don't know how to do that. But there is a way to push that out. So that is how to create a NetDocs shortcut on your desktop. Not related. This is a great question. I think our NetDocs certificate for federated ID is expired. Okay. So what is that? Okay. So I just said all of you are using single sign-on, right? I mean, and that's 90% true. So anyone that's not using Office 365 isn't using it. All right. Single sign-on NetDocs certificate expired. I think they last, Sabrina, 3 or 2 years. All right. All right. So, by the way, I don't even remember. Like people ask me questions and then I Google it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I wrote an article about that 2 years ago. So, this is answering your question here. If you, and you all should be aware of this. So, when we set this up, there's an expiration date. So, and honestly, shit. I mean, this is ours, 8/23. All right. Thank you for asking this. So in 10 days, I don't think Jeff at our office is even like aware of this, but our single sign-on will expire in 10 days because this is the last time Jeff set it up at our office. So it has to be updated. Now, I think their certificate goes for 2 years. So this explains how to do it. Now, again, when we're talking about this, make sure you can complete the steps, okay? Because you could break single sign-on in doing this. So this is a good thing. Let's paste this in the chat as well. And then I'm going to email Jeff. Jeff is in charge of all our IT at the office and be like, hey, did you know our certificate's about to expire? Obviously, we're doing a horrible job at this as well. We should really create a calendar appointment. I think it's 2 years after you've gone live. Now you should get a warning that it's expired. How to update federated ID. What happens if it expires and we don't renew? I think you'll stop being able to log into NetDocs via Office 365. But honestly, the other thing is that I've only been asked about this. When was I wrote this? So I wrote this article 3 years ago and no one asked me about this. So I'm not really sure if it expires if you still can't log in. I have to believe. I'm just telling you, and I could be completely wrong here, and maybe every person like you contacted NetDocs tech support. But out of the 515 law firms over 400 of them are on single sign-on. One person asked me about this, so I created this article, and no one's asked me about it in 3 years. So I don't think it blocks you from logging in, but you should look at updating that. Okay. All right, Andy, a couple versions back, there were some steps, prompt to file, desktop, advanced filing, except like that. Okay, that's all in the batch file. That's why you don't have to actually individually set those. The batch file sets all those things. So desktop email integration, Mappy. Okay, that's the first thing. So all that stuff is set up in the batch file, automatically happens. That's why I don't tell people to individually set those up anymore. And at a certain point, you would like 8 years ago, we're having you individually go in here, click here, click here. Now the batch file controls all of that. Single sign-on, best thing to do is to do it Friday afternoon. That way, if you have an issue, you can immediately create a NetDocs ticket. You can immediately call Craig Bear or send an email to help@optimal.com so we can start looking at it because we do work on the weekends. And then we will have it fixed by Monday. I would not do it Monday morning and it breaks and then no one can log into NetDocs Monday. I would do it Friday afternoon, least danger zone to do it. And before you update it, call NetDocs tech support, call me, and make sure that we're doing this all together. Help@optimal.com is new because our company's growing and we're trying to get all the help emails out of Craig's inbox into the whole team because there's 7 of us now. So that's why we have the help@optimal.com. Link to the batch file for the US data center. So where is this here? All right. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff in the chat here. So the Canadian data center I put in the chat here, US data center. And again, this batch file will not overwrite any user settings. And again, by the way, this thing will get updated all the time. So when ndOffice 5 comes out, we will go through and be like, what registry keys changed, and then we'll create a new batch file. So like for version 4, we created that batch file to deal with like blank folders and stuff like that. 4.2 to make ND folder mapping better, we added the batch file key there. So we're always updating that batch file for the new version. So before you update the new version, if you click here and see, and let's see if we click here, we can tell. Okay, so this one, you can kind of tell it's up to date. It is July 22nd, 2025. So you should see that thing. We always update it. That link is the same link, but we keep updating it when there's new versions. All right, these were great questions. Really kind of helps us focus on what we're doing. So I appreciate everyone's time today. See here. All right, so we're getting this for federated app. If certificate expires, you can't log in. Yeah, I mean, that's what I would expect would happen. All right, let's see here. Rachel's pointing out that if you follow those steps, you can put the shortcut just on the taskbar. Yeah, Rachel's in the chat shows you how to just put it on the taskbar. Sometimes we put it on the desktop, sometimes the taskbar, whatever really the user wants. All right. I think I've answered every question. Let's see here. I don't see any, there should be no black squares covered in anything on the presentation. So I'm not blocking anything at all. All right, I gotta jump. It's your Zoom windows. All right, I've got to jump on to another call. I hope everyone has a great day and a good end to your summer. And I will be in touch. Thank you all so much.